Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that asks you what you want to be when you grow up so you can graduate into retirement with purpose and passion. I'm your host and valedictorian, Eric Brotman, and in honor of Veterans Day, we have a phenomenal guest today, Dr. Ann James, the CEO of Financial Freedom Battle Buddies, a military veteran and a financial coach who's going to talk a lot about military money, financial freedom, and all different kinds of freedom. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I am fantastic. I want you to know that I'm a fan of your show. I have listened to a number of episodes. I think you're making a difference in a really tough community where there's, you've referenced that better than 50% of military families are paycheck to paycheck, which is an alarming thing. And you have a definition of freedom, which I love, which I'm going to read because I want to not mess this up, okay? Your definition of freedom is when you embrace the mindset of doing what you want, when you want, without ever worrying about money. I love that.
That's it.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
Well, it has definitely evolved over the years. Right? You know, when you talk about financial freedom, I've come to learn that everybody has their own definition. My definition is going to be different from your definition. It's going to be different from the next person's definition. But for me, on my journey, it really boiled down to it starts with the mindset, right? It's so much more than the numbers. You have to begin in your mind. And that's why, it came to me when you embrace that mindset. When you let go of those past limited beliefs that or myths that you had around money and embrace that, then that truly is the beginning of your journey to do what you want to do, when you want to do it. And you don't have to ever worry about money. Of course, there has to be a plan with it. And that's what I help others do is to create that plan for their definition of financial freedom. But that's really where it came from, embracing that mindset to live life to its fullest, like you said, to embrace my purpose, to embrace my passion, and not have to worry about money.
I think when people are worried about money, it's a little bit like oxygen. You know, when you have plenty of it, you don't think about it. And when you don't have plenty of it, it's all you think about. And so it's difficult to concentrate on your job or your family or your health or your own well-being or just about anything when you're saddled with real money fears, real money worries. And some of them I think are in our head. Some of them aren't legitimate. There's a certain fear because it's a language not all of us speak. And personal financial literacy and the lack of education there is an issue. But some of it's very, very real. It really is figuring out which bill you're paying this month on time or not. Or are we going to get through all of them? Or does this mean I need to take a second job or a third job or any of those kinds of things? So talk a little bit about your background. And I know you're a retired Air Force, and I am half an hour or so from the U.S. Naval Academy. So we're all Navy fans here, but we're all on the same team when it comes to the big game, right? So at any rate, tell me a little bit about your history and how you, number one, came to be involved with and enlist in the military, and then how you got involved with finance.
Yes, I am definitely a proud Air Force veteran, so I'll forgive you for supporting the Navy, but one team, one fight. It's all good.
Absolutely.
Yes. Basically where it all began, with me, I'm the youngest of three. My mother, I was raised by a single mother for the majority of my life. So as far as the military, one of my oldest brothers, he decided to go into the military, into the Air Force, and I went to visit him one summer, and I just liked what I saw. I just liked the community. The military bases are like their own little cities, and I loved that. And I knew that the military provided an opportunity for me to go to college. That was ultimately my goal, is to go to college, and I didn't want to settle my mother with debt. She would have did whatever she could to provide for me to go, but I didn't want to saddle her, I should say, with debt. So I decided to follow in my brother's footsteps and joined the world greatest Air Force, and as you mentioned, as a E1. In the career field, what's called personnel. It's kind of like human resources, that type stuff. And besides college, I also wanted to travel, right? To get away from my mother, so to speak. I wanted my freedom,
Okay.
right? Years ago, I wanted my freedom. So
Okay.
that's where it really started. So I joined the Air Force, and my very first duty station leaving California was in South Dakota. I didn't even know where South Dakota was, to tell the truth. I was like, what in the world? So to get out of South Dakota, I ended up volunteering to go anywhere in the world. I didn't care because, at that time, it's just me. I was single. I can do whatever I want. And I was lucky to get stationed in Italy.
Wow.
Yes, you're talking about young and free, going overseas, leaving the United States for the first time. And that's where my life really began. I found myself, I fell in lust. I got pregnant, and I ended up being
Yeah.
a single mother. Um, so that's where it all kind of began for me, and my love for finances. In that, once I became a single mother, and on top of all of that, when my daughter was about 3 or 4 years old, I took her to the doctor. She was kind of delayed in some of the things, like walking and speaking, but really her speaking. And the doctor told me that my daughter was developmentally delayed, what is
Hmm.
now referred to as autism. But at the time, I didn't know, what does that mean, right? Like, what does developmentally delayed mean? Does that mean she'll be quote unquote normal? Will she always
Right.
live with me? Those type things. And it was right then and there I had an epiphany that, and I remember, like, I was driving home and I felt like my mother was in my ear telling me that, okay, you always have to be in a position to take care of yourself, not just yourself, but your child. And I knew that I wasn't in a position to take care of myself because I had debt. I had a car I couldn't drive, not alone afford, but I couldn't drive it because it was a stick shift, right? Who buys a car that can't freaking drive? But I did because my boyfriend at the time, he drove it, type of thing. But it was at that point that I had to get my life in order, right? My financial house had to be in order. I did not want my past financial mistakes to hinder my daughter's future. So that's
Okay.
where the road to financial freedom, or my financial journey, began for me, is based off of my daughter. But to fast forward, after doing 21 years of service, in between that time, I commissioned and became an officer, because I figure, hey, if I'm going to stay in for the long run, I might as well get paid, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I decided to commission, and earn my commission from the University of Southern Mississippi, ROTC, and I became a finance officer, and I deployed to Iraq and did all of those things. But after 21 years of service, I was fortunate to graduate or retire, like you say, from
Hmm.
the world's greatest Air Force. So yeah, that's
That's
me in a nutshell.
that's a lot. First, I have to ask, did you ever learn to drive manual transmission?
I did.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's
I
good.
had
Um,
to.
and your daughter is in her 20s now?
Yes, Kayla is almost 30 years old. I know I
Third?
don't I
Okay.
know I don't look old enough to have a
No,
30-year-old,
no,
but
your
I do.
sisters for sure.
She's almost 30, and yes, she still lives with me. So
Okay.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
she able to work? Is she healthy? Is she
She's
able
not,
to
she's
do?
healthy. She's but not able to work. She's incapable of self-care. But it
Okay.
could definitely be worse. With autism, there's a wide spectrum, right? It can
Yeah.
go from one
Yeah.
end to the other. So Kayla's about in the, I would say, the middle range, not truly high functioning, but she can do basic life skills, on her own. But she,
Okay.
can't handle her own finances. She can't cook for herself and those type things. So she's still with me. So yeah.
Well, that's obviously difficult as a parent, but it also creates different financial considerations. I mean,
Absolutely.
any type of special needs or any type of situation where care is going to be needed means you have to plan for the event there she outlives you. Because
Absolutely.
if you're her safety net and support network, making sure that there's planning done for her. And there are lots of families, of course, around the world who are facing those kinds of challenges. But it puts a different financial burden on you than just parenthood, which as a proud dad myself, I can tell you, even when not saddled with those kinds of challenges, parenting's expensive. Parenting's
Yeah.
expensive under the best circumstances. So you mentioned that you fell in lust, and I'm not going to get ask for any details because this is a family show. But have you have you started have you expanded your family at all over this period of time, or have you just said I'm doing this myself, and you and Kayla are a two person, an army of two?
A great, great question. No, I have not expanded my family, but I would be remiss to not mention my daughter's father is still in her life. We
Oh,
didn't work
good.
out as a couple, but she's a daddy's girl. So I'm
Okay.
not doing it alone. Yeah, every
Okay.
day to day, but he's a strong figure in her life. So I am definitely blessed with that. So besides other family members, but yeah, he's there. He's still here. So yeah.
Very good. So let's talk about your professional life, your passion to help people with finance and financial freedom, which I think is very different than just financial literacy, or even, we use the word financial independence. We use financially set. I mean, we have all kinds of euphemisms for we're okay and we can cover our nut, right? What
All right.
you define freedom. How do you help people see what their version of that's going to be? Because as you mentioned in the open, your version of that is different than mine and different than anyone you coach.
Right, right. Well, basically, how I help, individuals to see that is with this framework that I use for myself, or journey on my journey is what's called a battle plan, right?
Okay.
B.A.T.T.L.E. And the battle, anything about the military, we love acronyms.
Okay.
Right. So it's really, a set of steps or strategies that if you follow those steps or strategies, that at the end of the day, you will reach your definition of financial freedom because it worked for me. It's not rocket science. It's just, something that I came up with as I was going through my journey and be like, okay, how can I capture what I went through to help other individuals, specifically, more so those that are that have served in the military or those that are currently serving. Because I don't believe that the military does a good job for preparing us for when we transition out or while we're still
Okay.
in regards to our finances, right? Because we're used to the security of being paid on the 1st and the 15th. Type of thing. So if you're not fortunate like me to retire and still have a paycheck every month, that's a big thing that you have to get used to. You use that sense of security. So in order to help, military family members, like I said, give their money, their marching orders. I came up
Okay.
with the battle
All right.
plan.
Will you share it with us?
Absolutely.
What's the
Thank you.
B? Let's get rolling. I'm taking notes here because I might come away with a different definition for myself in the next 15 minutes.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so the B, like I said, it surrounds that mindset, but you really truly have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do this thing, right? You have to believe that, oh, no matter how you grew up or you didn't talk about money in your household or you see your friends doing this or you see your friends doing that, you have to believe that financial freedom, debt freedom, whatever it is, can be yours. And that's what I like to say, if I can do it, like you said, as a mother of someone with special needs, surely anybody can do it. So you have to
Okay.
truly believe in yourself that you can do it. So that's the B in battle. The A
Okay.
is assess your priorities.
Okay.
What's important to you? What is driving you to want to start this journey to financial freedom? My number one priority was my daughter. Like I told
Hmm.
you, I didn't want my past mistakes to hinder her future. So whatever I did, I kept that in front of me to give me the motivation that I need on this journey, because it's not going to happen overnight, right?
Sure.
You can get into debt quickly, but it takes a while sometimes to get out of debt. So you have to assess your priorities to help you determine what is driving you, your why. Because like I mentioned, it's so much more than the numbers. It's so much more than the numbers. So what's important to you? Assess your priorities.
Okay.
So the first T in battle is to track your numbers, right? So you have to know your starting point. So whether you're talking about your income, your expenses, how much is going out the door, your credit, what type of credit score do you have? Do you even know your net worth? Is it negative or positive? Yes, you can have a negative net worth, believe it or not. So it's
It's
just so
true.
important to track your numbers as your starting point. Okay, get your head out of the sand and determine this is where I'm at. This is where
Okay.
I'm starting from. And then
Okay.
that, by knowing where you're starting from, it helps you to determine where you want to go. So that's the first T, track your numbers. The
Okay.
second T is a big one, is tackle your debt.
Hmm.
Right.
Okay.
I believe that, some debt is necessary and other debt is unnecessary, right? When I consider necessary debt, a mortgage or, student loans, some those things that makes your life better in the long run. But credit cards, even a car payment, um, vacations, those things are necessary, but it don't necessarily have to be on a credit card. You don't have to carry that around with you. That's what I can deem unnecessary debt. So
Okay.
tackle that. Pick a strategy. I help them to pick a strategy that works for them. There's so many different strategies with tackling debt, whether it's the debt snowball, whether it's the avalanche, whether it's, whatever it is, but you have to pick a strategy that works for you. The snowball method worked for me, but I know that that's not the case. And finances are personal, right? So everybody is
Very.
different. That's why I emphasize your debt. Pick a strategy that works for you, not in,
Hmm.
but what works for you. So to
Okay.
tackle your debt, because really debt, you can't be free if you're a slave to somebody else. You owe other people.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, when I began my journey, I went, I had a car I couldn't afford. I had credit cards. Eventually, I had a house. I got so focused on my debt, I was able to pay off over $300,000 in debt in 3 years
Wow.
by doing this program, by
Wow.
following these steps.
That's significant. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
yeah.
money to pay off over 10 years, but over 3, that's no joke.
It is, right? And it's a matter of focus. And I don't want individuals to think when they hear that, well, you're a doctor. Of course you can. No, that's not the case. I'm a doctor of education, not a medical doctor, right? So let's put that out there. I started
Okay.
out in the military as an E1. Yes, I may have graduated as an officer, but I started as an E1 and spent most of my time in the military in the enlisted ranks. So the enlisted ranks makes less money than officers. So you can't
Hmm.
use that as an excuse. Well, oh, Dr. Ann, you this, you that. No, And I'm a single mother. I have one income. I don't have a
Hmm.
spouse, that another income or whatever have you. Now I'm a business owner and that type stuff, but it can be done. But once again, that tackling your debt, it goes back to believing yourself, that B, right? So
Hmm.
that's the second T of battle. The
Okay.
L is, once you tackle your debt, is to level up your savings and your
Hmm.
giving, right?
Okay.
You have to, pay yourself and to save for those things that you want in life. You can travel. If you want to travel, you can travel. If you want to start a business, you can start a business. If you want to give, to a charity of your choice, that's up to you. If tithing is important to you, like it is me, you can do that. Not to say you can't do tithing all along. Don't get me wrong. You definitely should tithe, but that's my personal opinion.
Hmm.
But to level up your savings and your giving, because once you free up the money for debt, you have all this extra money. And
Right.
you should, once again, still have a plan for it. Everything revolves around a plan,
Okay.
and so that's the L, level up your saving and level
Do
up
I
your
get to
giving.
guess what? Do I get to guess what the E is?
You
I
can
don't
try,
know.
go
I've done
ahead.
no homework. Is it execute the plan?
It is not execute the
It
plan.
is not. Okay. So what's the E?
It's enjoy your journey.
Oh, that my second guess. Well, that was
Well, maybe
going to
I
be
should
my.
say execute and enjoy. You can do both,
Well, no, I
but
like enjoy better. I prefer to enjoy than to execute anyway.
yeah, it's enjoy the journey because when people think about getting their finances together, they think of deprivation, what they can't do. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to go out.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be able to go on vacation, that type of stuff. No, I'm not saying that. I still went on vacation when I was paying off debt. I had to because I love to travel, but I planned for it. Right? I planned for it so that I had the money to pay for it. I didn't have to charge it on a credit card. Right? You
Right.
want to enjoy your life in the process of this journey. And one of the great ways to do that is, track your progress. I like looking at milestones, making visuals, right? To help you remember or keep those priorities that I mentioned in the beginning in front of you to just keep you motivated. But you have to enjoy the journey and not just the outcome. We get so focused on the outcome. Oh, once I become debt free, I'll do this, or once I'll become debt free, I'll do that. No, life is meant to be lived today. So you have to find ways to enjoy your life as you're on this journey to financial freedom. So there you have it with the B.A.T.T.L.E Money Battle Plan to help you start your journey to financial freedom.
I love it. I love everything about it, especially the bookends. The belief is to me, none of this works without that, and having the confidence that you can do this. Um, and sometimes we get lulled into a false sense of security or a false sense of confidence. So
Yeah.
clearly, having belief in yourself without a plan is not going to work. But it is the most
Right.
important. It's the most important step. And then enjoy is my favorite, mostly because I like to enjoy everything if I can. I'm having fun with you today. Um,
Awesome.
this is great. You talk about the self talk. You talk about your why, which ultimately, prioritization matters because we can do financially. Most people can do almost anything that's most important to them. They just can't do everything they feel like.
That's it.
So having this singular goal or this singular priority or several of them, but knowing the order in which they arrive does help with decision making, I would think. Now,
It absolutely
when
does.
when you work with specifically military families, military families have some different nuances financially than others, starting with that security that's often there that then disappears, which you mentioned, but also the transient nature of the work means that sometimes you're living in different places. Maybe you don't have the same support network that you would if you were in your hometown where you grew up. There are certainly sometimes limitations on how long you can be in a specific career because depending on your role, I would imagine there could be some significant physical constraints and other things to consider when you're in an active role like that. What are the things that make working with military families? Um, I think I know what makes it rewarding, but what makes it challenging?
Wow, what makes it challenging? I think it goes back to, like you said, that all of those different moving pieces that you have to deal with, right? Whether it's the moving, what we call PCS, your permanent change of stations every 2 to 3 years, you never really are able to put down roots, so to speak, to make sure that you have that sense of belonging. That can be really challenging. Also, a difficult thing is that mindset, right? you have the security of the paycheck. That's a good and a bad thing, right? The bad thing is they think that, well, I get paid, twice a month, so I can afford it. I want it now, so I can afford. The paycheck is always going to be there. So they don't worry about planning ahead a lot of times because they rely so much on the security of the paychecks that they're currently given. They tend to not live or see their stuff outside of the military. That's a big, their identity is so tied to the military that they don't plan for the life outside of the military. So with that, I just try to remind them, if you're still serving, mind you, right? So if I'm talking about those clients that are still serving, hey, you're going to have to transition at some point. You can't
Right.
stay in the military forever. So you need to plan for that transition. There is life outside of the military, and the transition doesn't have to be a difficult transition. If you plan for it, you can have a successful transition. I know I did, but I planned for it. I knew I was ready to get out, or ready to retire type of things, where some individuals aren't like that. And for those that have already made that transition, it's difficult because they've lost that security, right? In regards to the income, maybe instead of twice a month is, once a month. And they lost a lot of the other benefits that we may have taken for granted while we still serve. For instance, while we were still serving the military, they provide you money for your housing, right? What's called a housing allowance. They provide you allowance for food, allowance for your uniform. You don't get all that stuff in the civilian sector, right? Your income is what it is. And also remember, a lot of times when we're shopping on base, it's tax free, right? It's those little things that we may have taken for granted while we were still in, where it's no longer there. And let's not mention medical,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I was
Like,
waiting because that's a big deal.
that's a big one. It's
Big
huge.
deal.
We can be seen at the VA, the Department of Veteran Affairs. Yeah, but if you're not retired like myself or have, a medical or service disabled rating where, it's covered by the VA, that medical is priceless that the military
Mm-hmm.
provides. And now that's gone for us that have already transitioned out. So that's why it's just so, those are, to answer your question, some of the difficulties, but that's why it's so important to just have a plan, to deal with those things. Not to say that they're insurmountable. You just got to plan for it. You got to plan for it. So yeah,
It's interesting. I've been talking with people for many years about this, but I think it's important not to look at whether it's military or an athletic career or any career as who you are. It's what you do. And it's a very difficult thing because so many people, if someone walks up to you on the street or they're in an elevator with you and they're like, so tell me about you, the first thing we come up with is what we do for a living. I don't know why that is. And I think it's an intensely American thing. I don't think that happens everywhere. But in this country, we spend a lot of time thinking about who we are as what we do, so that when we're not doing it anymore, we lose part of our identity. And so that transition you're talking about it's not only challenging financially for all the reasons that you just laid out. It's also challenging intellectually, emotionally, socially, because that was part of who you are or who you thought you were. And so, it's really important to graduate, as we like to say, to graduate to something rather than purely retiring from something. It's having that next place to go. And that gets me excited every day. And it sounds like you're helping people with that transition, and that it's really a two-part conversation. And it's how do we help you get out of what you're in? And I don't mean debt. I mean of a career move. How do you exit the military, but also how do you enter whatever the next chapter of your life is going to be? And that, of course, brings me to one of my favorite questions. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and just say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'll preface this by saying I tell my 12-year-old daughter all the time not to grow up because it's a trap. So in so much as we're already up, what's the next what's the next chapter of your life look like? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Wow, that is such a good and difficult question. Like you said, we're so tied to certain things, what we do. I want to be the best who God made me to fulfill my purpose by using my gifts to help others. I just want to be the best person who I was made to be so that on the final day, I'm looked at as a good and faithful servant. So,
That is a high bar to set for yourself. And why not?
yeah, that's why we're all here. We all have a
It's true.
purpose. It's just a
It's
matter of
true.
I just, like you said, walking in my purpose. No matter of the outcome, it's not the income, it's the impact, right? And
Okay.
I'm learning that in my life because up to a certain point, you're a business owner and just a mom and all these things, and it's the income. But no, it's when you get to a point in your life where you're no longer worrying about money. It's a matter of what's the impact that I can have on somebody else. And I just want to be walking in my purpose, whatever that is.
I love that you
Whatever
mentioned,
that is.
I love that your L mentioned not just your own savings, but your giving and giving back, whether it's community, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's charity, and there's lots of ways to give. And we've certainly had guests on and done shows about philanthropy, and by that I don't mean naming buildings. I mean at whatever level you are, donating time, talent, and treasury to make a difference to other people, I think is clearly part of your calling, part of your why. And now it's also not only what you want to be when you grow up, but I suspect it's what you are already.
I'm in the process
Okay.
of
All
becoming.
right.
We all are. We're not there. I think it's the journey, right?
Okay. All right.
Yes, I'm in the process. Yeah.
So I need an extra credit assignment for our audience. And and creating a battle plan is a darn good one. So I'm not letting you get off that easy. What is a good extra credit assignment, that one first step that folks can take right now for having spent half an hour with the two of us today? What's
Mhm.
that one extra credit, go do this right now moment, that thing?
Wow. I would say to go look in the mirror or wherever you're at, or you can write it down or whatever, and just say it out loud or tell yourself, I can do this.
Love it. I love it.
You can do this. And just make up your
This is
mind.
you have you've been an inspiring guest. I knew you would be. If I ever get a chance to be on your show, I'll try and do you as solidly as you've done us today, because this has been great. How can people get in touch with you? How can people who want to know more about what you do and your business, and how can folks find you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me, visit my website, www.drannjames.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Ann James. That's Instagram, Dr. Ann James, or Facebook, Dr. Ann James.
I'm noticing a theme. I'm noticing a theme. Dr. Ann James is everywhere.
Yeah. But that's really how you can reach out, more so on Facebook than anywhere else. But yeah, I have presence everywhere. But if you want to reach out and sign up for a free 15-minute money, what I call my money chat, you can do that via my website. No obligation, just to see if we're a good fit. Right, what I like to say, to see where it can be battle buddies, financial freedom battle buddies, because I don't work with just any and everybody, and everybody's not ready. type of thing. So if you believe in you, if you're ready, if you feel like you have a made up mind, definitely, reach out to me and we can take it from there.
I love it. And I hope people watching will do just that. Ann, thank you.
Awesome.
You've been a tremendous guest. I have enjoyed this, and I have no doubt you're going to continue to make a big, big difference to families, to individuals, and to the world. So thank you. Thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And I'd like to thank all of you for watching today. We'd love to hear from you. So please send us a message or leave us comments at don'tretiregraduate.com or on social media, or leave ratings and reviews on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoy our show, share it with your friends and family so they can join you on your journey to financial freedom. We'll be back next week with another installment of Office Hours, and in 2 weeks with another engaging guest. For now, this is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS. An affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Brotman Financial or any other entity discussed.